My name is Philip Brown, and I am the owner of Deph Digital Media. We're a small digital marketing agency based out of Seattle, Washington. So, lovely Seattle. If you haven't had a chance to come out and visit us, please do that soon. I know everyone is busy today, so I wanted to say thank you for taking some time out of your day, joining us, and hopefully there's a lot you take out of this. At the end of this presentation, we'll have a quick opportunity for me to answer some questions that you may have. So let's jump right into things. It is impossible to launch a new brand via Facebook. Much like Snapchat, consumers are looking for a social website to replace Facebook. They've overhauled the newsfeed, and they're shrinking the amount of content that they show you. Organic reach on Facebook is dead. You've probably seen headlines similar to this, and they all warn us of a Facebook apocalypse. But what does that really mean for publishers like yourself? At the core of these messaging is a simple change to Facebook's algorithm. And if you aren't familiar with an algorithm, for the purpose of today's conversation, we're going to define that as a calculated process that controls the flow of information in which people receive. So when you search online, scroll through your social feeds, or receive song recommendations from Spotify or something like that, you're being guided by an algorithm that understands your consumption habits probably better than you do. So people tend to think that when everything they see on their news feeds through Facebook or Twitter or Instagram is something that they think is relevant to them, their shopping habits, etc., that it's kind of magic. But it's not magic at all. It's actually mathematical. And that equation that they use to determine what content they show you is made up of two parts. The first is algorithmic quality, the quality standard and the value of content that's available. And the second part of that equation is your browsing history. It's the actions and reactions that you've taken to specific chunks of content that they've shown you in the past. So this means that whether by design or by some personal choice, social media algorithms have allowed us to create filters, or these echo chambers, where all the content that we see is what we want to see, and it kind of blocks out and removes everything that we don't. So in the past, social networks were largely a place where people connected. But over time, they've evolved into equal parts an information distribution platform, or a news sharing platform. And a huge part of that transformation was due to the influx of businesses that joined social networks. So there's actually an interesting fact that more than 60 million businesses are on Facebook alone. And as professionals, I'm sure all of you see the benefit social can have on your marketing and your communication strategies. So there are more than 2.2 billion people on Facebook, and 32% of them engage with brand pages or those businesses that we just discussed regularly. So marketers had this quite easy thanks to Facebook, and then something happened. Clickbait, fake news, bots, trolls, this. So Facebook made a decision to try to turn back the hands of time, to see if they could get back to their roots, where the purpose of the network was to spark meaningful conversations. And I don't think anyone would object to that goal, but the statement that they put out in January alarmed publishers quite a bit. They said they're going to show less content from businesses. Pages will see a decline in the number of people that they're reaching, but pages who stay true to their efforts to help create meaningful conversations won't be affected. Yet still, this was kind of a jarring announcement for publishers to hear, because our page reach had already declined for several years. So back in 2012, an average post would be seen by about 16% of that page's following. By 2016, businesses were only reaching about 2% of their audience organically. So the primary reason for this decline was, Facebook's efforts to nudge publishers to spend more on advertising dollars, to increase their ad spend. And since that most recent change went into effect in January, we've already seen further declines. So organic post is now reaching around 0.7% of your total audience. So is there anything you can do to combat this, or should you just give up? The answer to both of those questions is yes. We got to give up on the things that no longer work, and take notes as we go through this presentation today on how you can maintain some resemblance of the reach from those golden days. And in order to do that, there's going to be two overarching themes. The first is to build a community, not an audience. You've got to stop thinking about your following as potential customers and start thinking of them as your tribe, as a group of valued stakeholders whose reactions and opinions and reviews of your business even will shape the way that you start making decisions. The second is to make content that you're sharing conversational, not attention grabbing. If you succeed at starting a conversation, you're going to get on the good side of the algorithm, which leads to more attention in the end. Now, let's take a look at what the algorithm actually takes into consideration. Meet Jonathan Rye. Let's say Jonathan has a brand page, that he's an influencer of some sort, and he updates his profile picture. Whether or not his update appears in users' newsfeed depends on several factors. The average amount of time the first few initial people Facebook showed it to spent on the content. Did they keep scrolling past, or did they pause, hover their mouse over it, maybe even click to enlarge the photo? Then they're going to consider whether or not people took time to like or comment on the post. And if they did comment, did other people engage with what they said? They're also looking at how complete Jonathan's profile is. If he's got all the information in each field Facebook makes available, they're likely to predict that his page is a real one and not something set up with the intention to spam people. They're also looking at how informative the post is. Something like an update to your business hours listed on your page, they probably find more relevant than sharing content that you've changed, your cover photo for the 28th time. They're going to prioritize the type of updates that you're making and what they're showing to your audience. So if people shared, a post, were their friends receptive to that content as well? These are kind of basics, but let's look a little closer at everything we know about the algorithm and exactly how it works. As I mentioned, posts are first shared to a small percentage of users, and Facebook measures everything we went over when looking at Jonathan's update. And that's because Facebook isn't out to get you. These initial people that see your content are typically your most engaged fans. So you might think that we could adapt to algorithm changes by posting more. And I know theoretically, the more we post, the more that our reach would add up, and that kind of makes sense, right? But actually, you only want to post a maximum of 1 to 2 posts a day. In a pretty lengthy experiment, Buffer, which is a social scheduling platform, discovered that the more pages posted to Facebook, the less reach they actually received. So in this experiment, they altered their strategy to post only once a day, and their reach actually increased by 330%, which is quite amazing. So as many social media managers know, and hopefully that's a lot of you joining us today, you probably understand how it's a constant challenge to send out a lot of quality content to Facebook every single week. There's the creation process, the copywriting, the editing, the scheduling, the monitoring, engaging with your community. The list goes on and on. So when you're trying to fill the queue with content for the sake of having a presence, that content tends to become diluted and lost in the newsfeed, even though it might be quality and awesome content to be sharing. Every post just isn't right for Facebook. We also know that Facebook prioritizes posts from family and friends over public content from business pages. And that's because they believe that a person-to-person connection is a lot more valuable than a person-to-page connection. And because they don't want to fake, connections to kind of game the algorithm, they penalize posts that ask for likes, shares, or comments. So even though you can't ask people to comment or share a post in the text description itself, you still should encourage tagging when other users choose to do so. And you can do this just by going through and liking or reacting to the comments when people have tagged in their friends or family. So a good example of this is kind of why you see on a lot of content that goes viral. If you look in the comment section, it's mainly full of people dropping names of those on their friends list. And that's part of the reason that content is so successful, is because it's being shared, they're tagging friends, and then those friends are reacting to it as well. Social media, in essence, kind of works like a ripple effect. So this is just a great example of that and how you can encourage your audience and your tribe to interact. But of course, even something more valuable than a tag is a long-form comment. Facebook wants us to spark meaningful conversations, so by asking questions or prompting people to share their own experience in your post's comment section, you're adding value to that overall. So when you think about it, at its core, this is kind of what Facebook has always been about. Since the beginning, they've asked us, what's on your mind? We know that links are only prioritized when they're shared via Messenger. And the easiest way for users to kind of do that is through Facebook Instant Articles, which load your offsite data within the Facebook app so that users never have to leave their platform. And studies have shown that using Instant Articles definitely impacts reach, which in turn leads to better results for your content. 20% more clicks as opposed to regular links, and an amazing 30% more shares. The credibility and completeness of your page is a factor in determining whether or not your posts are shown to people. So many of you have probably looked through Facebook settings tab, but you really should dive into those settings a bit deeper. If your page categories don't align with the type of page template you have installed, for example, that can affect your credibility on a daily basis. So it's important for all of you to kind of get in there and make sure information is completed accurately. And if it asks for a piece of information, that you've provided some sort of answer, because it will increase that credibility overall. The algorithm also favors content that generates conversations and engagements on shares. So recently, they began showing us the number of engagements on shares for each of our page posts. So in a minute, we'll get to why those numbers may be more important than even the first column, which is the number of reactions that your original post received. So we'll come back to this. It's a very important step. Native content, meaning content that is generated on Facebook itself, gets precedence over non-native content. So similar to how instant articles perform better because they're native to Facebook, they don't require a person to leave the site. That's the same for photos and videos as well. If you take photos from the Facebook camera, those are going to get precedence over the ones uploaded from your computer or your camera roll. But if you absolutely have to upload a graphic that maybe a design team has given you, then just make sure that your photo contains no more than 20% text. This is a rule that Facebook has implemented, and it will diminish reach the more text you add to a photo. So there's a great text overlay tool you can use to upload those graphics and kind of check the amount of text on a photo. And like I said, it's important that you do this because the further you go over 20%, the fewer people your post is going to be shown to. If you share a video, a Facebook Live will get precedence over those uploaded elsewhere. And here's another tip. Under Publishing Tools tab of your page, there's a built-in feature that connects third-party simulcasting services and cameras to Facebook Live. So you don't have to sacrifice the quality of content you're producing in order for it to be native. And one of the reasons that live video is prioritized naturally is because it gets more interactions. So it's kind of an added bonus. Let's take a second to see how you can get the most out of your live videos. First of all, tell your followers when you plan to go live. If you utilize that live scheduling tool under your settings tab that I just mentioned, your fans can actually opt in to receive a reminder about upcoming broadcasts that they hope to tune into. And then it will send them a notification on the day of that, hey, your follower that you appreciate or your company that you enjoy following is about to go live. To make things easier on yourself, write captions ahead of time. You can open and close a live window several times when you're testing a connection or different camera angles. So having a description ready to copy and paste, I prefer to use like the notes tab on my phone, always makes it, or allows a simple kind of way for you to stay on task. And when you're broadcasting, remember to ask viewers to subscribe to get live notifications from your page. There's a follow button that appears in the corner of every broadcast that they can click, and then they'll start receiving push notifications the next time that you do go live. And even if you aren't reading comments, while you're broadcasting, be sure to go back and reply to questions that might be in the comment section afterward. That only helps further generate the type of conversations that the algorithm is looking for. So let's get back to what we know about that algorithm. We also know that engagement is based on a point system. And this is where I think a lot of the fun comes in, and why a lot of you are probably joining this webinar today to learn about quality content scoring. Every time you make a post, what questions can you ask yourself to ensure that it's going to be a post that the algorithm will favor? Let's say this is a post and you're about to hit the publish button. Before you do that, ask yourself, does it include native images or video? Is it a live video? Does it include external links? Is it clickbait? Does it ask users to like, share, or comment? Does it include overly promotional kind of buzzwords like free or sale? And has the exact same post been shared before? Answering these questions accordingly, the green blocks, meaning that those are the answers you want to have, should give you a good indicator of whether or not to make the post. Now, let's take a look at some examples to see kind of how you guys would rank these. In this post from Walmart, it includes video, but it isn't live. And while it isn't clickbait, it does have an external link to its product page, and it avoids overall promotional language and asking people to engage. So how did it perform? We can't see the post reach because we're not an admin on Walmart's page, but the number of likes is a good indicator. It received 316 positive interactions and 28 shares. So let's compare that to another Walmart post. This photo looks like it was taken natively, probably through the Facebook camera. It isn't a live video, but it comes up well with all other components on our checklist. There's no link, no promotional wording at all, and this post performed exceptionally well. More than 3,000 positive reactions and nearly 1,500 shares. This is the impact of a non-promotional post versus a sales post. Best Buy tried their hand at sharing a link with no native images or videos, and it didn't perform so well. Notice a small number of 94 interactions, including a lot that are actually negative responses. So probably because this post also includes a promotional phrase, promoting people to pre-order. So on the flip side of things, Starbucks went live. They engaged within the comment section of their video. They avoided links, and they were able to see a lot of success with this post, encouraging people to register to vote. Again, really highlighting the importance of building a community over building an audience. So you may be wondering, why would I make an update without linking to my site? How does that help me drive business? Well, social media removes kind of this negative association that people have with being subjected to marketing. People scroll through social media at home, a lot of times even while they're laying in bed. And while doing so, they're creating a positive association with your company. And as it turns out, this leads to profitability. Customers who have interacted positively with the brand's social media have been shown to spend 21% more than customers who don't. So once you've kind of made your community building post, we're going to look at some ranking signals. And these are questions that Facebook is going to ask when determining whether or not to distribute that post. So your post is now part of the newsfeed, and the algorithm is asking these questions. Is the post timely? Was it made at a peak time when people were online to distribute it to? Are people who regularly engage with your page engaging with the post? Are people having a discussion in the comment section of that post? And then, what is all of that engagement actually worth? So to answer that last question, we have something called algorithmic signals. And remember earlier, we defined an algorithm as a mathematical calculation. So the things that are going to signal whether or not a post is, creating meaningful interactions are numbers. Numbers estimated by some researchers at STE Davies. So let's look at this post from Chipotle. Every single like or reaction that this post receives is going to count as 1 point. Every comment adds 6 points. Longer comments, 13. Shares are also going to be counted at 6 points apiece, while shares that generate engagement are bumped up to 13 points as well. And if the post contains a video, 30-second views are worth 1/4 of a point, while an entire minute of watch time generates 13 points. So here's an important component. Points can also be subtracted. Every bit of negative feedback, which means someone hides the post or unfollows your page, based on that post, results in 100 points being subtracted. So it's impossible for us to get precise calculations for any given post that you make because we don't know how much engagement Facebook considers on a share to either bump that total from 6 to 13. We also don't know whether the exact definition of a long-form comment is. We can do rough calculations, but there's no set goal, no number that everyone should be trying to reach. Those goals are different for every type of page and every type of business. And so that's what a social media marketer like myself does. We download your Facebook post insights, create a spreadsheet, and then weigh each post to calculate your estimated engagement score, and then make suggestions based on the type of content that's performing well for your audience. And those weighted factors and kind of what points you're assigning to what types of engagement you find impactful are what are going to make those equations different across the board. So we just basically analyze complicated data and break it down to give you a simple synopsis. So what's the synopsis from today? What about that Facebook apocalypse? After all, didn't everyone say that they were going to delete their Facebook accounts? Well, as it turns out, they didn't. And I don't think of it as an apocalypse. I think of it as a reawakening. You've definitely got to change your approach to Facebook, but the benefits of doing so are going to lead to more successful results and less stress about creating content. So here's what I'm hoping you kind of take away from this today. Take an 80-20 approach to native and owned content. Facebook wants you to create content for the platform, not just post links to your own sites. But if you have a credible profile and do so sparingly, the algorithm may actually help you when you decide to promote those links or your own content. Use live video to drive engagement whenever possible. Facebook has specifically said they'll prioritize live video because they know it generates 6 times more engagement than any other content. And anything that drives meaningful engagement is worth doing. Absolutely no clickbait, engagement bait, or any type of overly promotional content. Clickbait articles, statuses that ask users to like, comment, and share, or promotional updates will be marked down by the Facebook algorithm and will hurt every post you make in the future, so just don't do it. And don't use Facebook as a means to share every piece of content you have. If it doesn't generate engagement, then your credibility score will decrease, and our aim is to be reputable in the eyes of the algorithm. So only share content that you believe is suitable for the platform and the audience you're trying to engage, the community you're trying to build. Be choosy with what you share. And if you're looking for someone to help you do that, I hope you choose Deph Digital.